The Cisco AeroNet 4800 access point. How good is it? What features does it have? And is it still worth using in 2025? Well, let's find out. So let's start with a hardware interview. So on the back of the access point, you have a 5 gigabit per second LAN port, a 1 gigabit per second LAN port, a USB, a console port, and a DC input and a reset button. On the back, we have this absolutely solid back heatsink. And on the front of the AP, we have a little arrow to indicate the direction, Cisco logo, and an LED. So let's get this plugged in. In terms of powering the access point, you have two options. First being that DC power jack that I showed earlier, and the second being PoE. Now, this thing technically supports 3 different PoE classes, though it's only usable with 2. The first one that's usable, the lowest wattage, is 802.3 AT. Now, there are a couple restrictions. For example, the USB port will be disabled when using 802.3 AT PoE, but it will not affect the radio performance. Now, if you power it using one of Cisco's UPoE switches, you will get the USB port enabled. Now, I understand nobody really likes reading spec sheets, but these are truly incredible APs. First, let me start by saying that this is going to go end of life at the end of 2027. Now, in all honesty, I'm not too concerned about this because there are just so many of these access points out in the wild still. I'm willing to bet that there's going to be a little bit longer software support, especially on the 9800 controller platforms. So, the 4800 is the top of the line from Cisco's AC Wave 2 portfolio. In terms of the radios inside of it, it has 3, a 2.4 GHz, a 5 GHz, and a flexible 2.45. Now, what does this mean? This means that you can do a dual 5 GHz 4x4 radio inside the AP without adding any additional hardware. Of course, it still inherits all of the normal stuff from Wave 2 APs, such as multi-user MIMO. In addition, as I said earlier, this thing supports up to a 5 gigabits per second Ethernet connection, so you can actually take advantage of both of those dual 5 radios. However, you can also run it at 2.5 gigabits and 1 gigabits a second on that port, in case your switch is not a 5 gigabit switch. This AP also has hyperlocation. Now, what this allows you to do is pinpoint, down to the meter level accuracy with the AP of a client device. Now, traditional location via AP sort of worked like triangulation. Let's say I have one AP here, one AP here, and one AP here. The way traditional access point location-based services would work is your client would talk to all 3 of those nearby APs in that example and just kind of figure out a rough location based on that. However, the 4800 series from Cisco actually has a dedicated 16 antenna array for hyperlocation, which is incredibly cool if location-based services are essential to you. This thing also has BLE. Now, while I don't recommend using it on a Wave 2 access point, you do have 160 megahertz channels if you have a very clean environment and you want to go for it. You also have Cisco's standard suite of Client Link, Application Visibility Control, and Clean Air. The Ethernet ports on the bottom also support lag, so if you only have 2 1 gigabit connections, lag them together. On top of all that, this also supports the full suite of Cisco-designed Apple features. For example, they partnered in iOS, 10? Yeah, they partnered in iOS 10 to enable roaming optimizations. Very cool. So, where do I see this access point today? Well, I really see it being used in medium to low density classroom environments. Definitely if you have a large house, this AP is still very useful. And a lot of small businesses. Now, I bet some of you are out there like, why is this guy recommending a top of the line Wi-Fi 5 access point still. And let's look at it. This thing has dual 5 GHz 4x4 radios. That's incredible, and even though they are only Wi-Fi 5, so you're only going to see single client speeds of around 600 to 700 megabits a second through, that's still plenty. In addition, this thing is also just built like a rock. This thing, almost guaranteed, will still be working in 10 years. I mean, just look at the Cisco 3700 series of AP that were released in 2013, and many airports are still using them because they work. In addition, these access points are still fully supported in the 9800 controller, so these will be receiving all the software and security updates that 9800 controller is getting, and are guaranteed security updates for at least another, almost 3 years from the point of recording. Now, the other thing about them is they have come down incredibly in price. What once was about a $2,000 AP, MSRP, of course you'd get deals from Cisco. What was once a $2,008 AP is now, call it around $50 or $100. And quite frankly, a dual 5 GHz Wi-Fi AP with 4x4 on each of those is still perfectly usable for many small classrooms, say up to 30 kids, large homes, and small businesses. For example, just doing a little bit of math here, if you have 30 kids in a classroom with, call it 2 devices each, that's 2 to 3 devices each, that would be around 60 to 80 clients. This thing can still easily handle 80 clients without breaking a sweat. In fact, I've seen multiple airports within the course of the past 3 months that are still using this AP to great success.
However,
let's face it, Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and just emerging Wi-Fi 7 is here to stay. They are true feature updates on the Wi-Fi 5 standard. But again, if you do your RF planning right and you're not expecting worlds and leaps and bounds out of the 4800 series, these are still amazing price to performance APs. Oh yeah, and one last thing. What I like to tell my clients is this. One of these 4800 series access points is, in most cases, going to be better than a lot of modern prosumer or SMB designed hardware. Now why? First off, reliability. This thing is a tank, the software inside of it is very well designed, and it'll last. Next thing I tell my clients is software. While it is, yes, a little bit older of an AP platform, it still fully supports Cisco iOS XE on the 9800 controllers, and by the looks of it, will for a while. And with those 9800 controllers, you get a ton of features that are just not found on those SMB or prosumer access points. Looking at Ubiquiti, I've had multiple U6LRs fail within the course of 2 years. I have 4800s out in the field that are still going as strong as the day that they were installed. So, if this sounds like the right access point for you, being a small to medium business and maybe a small classroom with only 30 students in it, or maybe you're a small business just looking for last generation's top performing hardware for a very good deal. Oh yeah, and yet another thing I forgot because I keep just remembering stuff. On the 4800 APs on the inside, there is actually 2 sets of antennas for a macro-micro cell type. Now, where this differs from a lot of prosumer hardware, looking at like Ubiquiti here, this has 2 separate coverage zones. It has a small coverage zone and a large coverage zone. Now, what this is great for is when you have multiple clients connected at different ranges. Say, for example, in the room, I have a bunch of clients, and then outside I have a couple of just random like little phones in people's backpacks. Now, what this will do is it'll automatically assign those clients that are in the room or closest to the AP to be on the small cell. And then it'll assign those clients that are further away, or worse clients, on the outside cell. Now, what this will do is eliminate wasted airtime. Since instead of having to manage communications and airtime between all those clients, some might be a foot away, some might be 50 feet away, it can actually split that up so it works more efficiently with the airtime that it has. Thank you for watching.